Welcome back, everyone, to part 2, the mid-game of episode 14, Def's Daily Dose of Dota. I'm your host, Michael, Deficit Plumley, and today is episode 14, and we're focusing on the support Venomancer from Alliance.Misery, a stand-in at the recent Starladder Star Series Season 10. We've seen Venomancer do a reasonably respectable job, about as much as you can ask out of a support in the early game. He helped assist with the first blood in an initial tri-lane with that early point in Venomous Gale. He did die early to a Witch Doctor Death Ward, as Venomancer's low speed, 285 base speed, makes him a little difficult to retreat in those kinds of scenarios where you're suddenly having a lot of incoming damage. But other than that, we've seen him hold the mid-ground in the mid lane and D up the towers with the assistance of those 450 HP Plague Wards. They're not really damage dealers, and I wouldn't consider Venomancer a damage dealer either, although 3 of his abilities are damage over times. Their magical damage, not very significant. And then the Plague Wards, the 4th ability, deal piercing damage, so you take a large hit if you're attacking buildings, where they only do 35% damage, or other heroes, where they only do 50% damage. Let's hop back into the game and see how Venomancer continues into the mid-game. When we left off, the mid-tier 1 tower had fallen, and the jungle had been invaded. And we have no sound. It's really low. We'll change that later. But we're focusing on Venomancer. Just occupying the mid lane here, using his Plague Wards to do damage to what they work best against, those lane creeps. And we see one of his first big items purchased, a point booster. So it will be an Aghanim Scepter, presumably coming out. You don't see Venomancers getting Eye of Scotty, although it might actually stack. The main itemization, however, is just going to be
bottom tower is under attack.
With that Aghanim Scepter. It's going to increase the duration, I believe, to 17 seconds. And it'll also increase the damage. We see Venomancer smoked up in the top lane. Cheeky little move here. You can still place the smoke.
Dire's top tower
You can still place the wards, rather, under smoke. But we see him port bottom. Rush in. Start dropping down the wards to get some slows off.
Dire's top tower
and make the retreat for his allies that much easier. 450 HP on these wards. Skywrath Mage has to sit there all day to destroy it. And just a couple more wards, one to block off a flanking retreat path and the immediate retreat path. And other than that, he'll just stand under the tower and begin the defense. But with 3 heroes coming, will these 450 HP wards be enough? That was a Razor dying in that fight, about all that happened. We see with enough time here, he's already have 5 wards down. That is going to make it a 6th. And Venomancer just using those as soon as they come off of cooldown. He's up to 2 mana per second regen, that's 120 per 60 seconds. That's 6 wards. Quite enough to keep him going. As we see this one in the top, preventing the side lane retreat path. But here comes Razor, having to expend his ultimate. The tower did fall, so you might wonder, well, the Plague Wards really didn't do much for the defense, but that was a tier 1 tower that was already low. And Razor having to expend this ultimate, rank 2 now, with Aghanim, so it does affect the tower, is an ultimate that cannot be used against the tier 2 tower. So I would say that is a win for Misery's sake. And we see him just sitting in the lane, again, using the wards to do the majority of the damage, since they deal full damage to creeps. And with their 450 HP, they will prevent the lane from being pushed. Instead, they will do the pushing themselves. We're seeing fights up in the top, very Typical stuff. Brewmaster splits, attempts to get some DPS out. Speaking of DPS,
is under attack.
that's a Witch Doctor now with an Aghanim Scepter. Love this on him. He will definitely be dishing out damage this game. 150 damage, and it bounces 4 times.
Heads up. Radiant's top tower
We see Misery just sitting in lane here. He's kept very competitive on the hero levels. Even though he is a support this game, you'll see almost the entire board of heroes is between 2 levels, 11 or 10. And Venomancer, not wanting to push this out too far, didn't know if he had heroes coming to gank him. Instead, choosing to just back up a little bit. We will see a Doom wander into the jungle now. Begin farming up creeps. And that will be the cue for Venomancer to push forward. Though he does see Slardar in lane. He's going to put a ward on the high ground to make sure he cannot be flanked. And continue to lie in wait. Perhaps rotate to the mid. The mid tier 1 for Cloud9 is still standing. We see him just dropping the Plague Wards as a scouting mechanism. Not sure if the heroes are on the other side of that. So he will choose to place the Observer Ward here. In a defensive posture, but still covering the Roshan pit. And now, this stack that he stacked almost 15 minutes ago, he will start to put to good use. The Plague Ward's 450 HP, but they're stationary, they have a reasonable range. So he's going to use them to help get a little bit of jungling done. Occupy his time while he waits for this push to happen on the bottom lane. Once he sees the pressure coming, back to the tower, and more Plague Wards for the defense. Meanwhile, these are up for 40 seconds, so they're still doing some damage. Micro's fallen off a little bit, but he will now rotate back over and continue to farm up. He already has his Ogre Club. His last hitting's pretty respectable. 60 last hits, not bad. When you're a support, you'll take anything you can get. And it's worth noting that although he is jungling here, well, we're going to go to this fight here, see if he rotates in. Wraith King having his ultimate triggered. All 4 heroes are slowed, the Plague Wards will come in, but Misery will have to leave him to die. It's worth noting that one of the recent nerfs that did come out to Venomancer, at least last year, was to his jungling ability. People were just immediately going jungle around level 2 or 3 with these wards and trying to get a lot done. That is not as effective anymore. They don't do as much damage, neither does Venomancer, but these Ancients are an excellent opportunity to jungle. If you have 1 stack already up, you know your wards are going to be sitting there for 40 seconds, so you can place a couple wards and get a lot of value out of them, farming Ancients.
Dire's middle tower has fallen.
But the Ancient farming is going to have to wait. As we see Misery D'ing up this tier 3 tower. Items coming out.
Illusion.
He also picked up his Staff of Wizardry. He's getting quite close to his first item. The net worth, this is a very close game. As you see it back and forth. Kill count at the top of the screen tells a similar tale. We see this ward on the high ground, 2 now, doing work, as he also uses the ward to scout out Roshan. But Brewmaster will come in and take the farm. We'll see Venomancer instead rotate to the mid lane and just use the wards to be a first line of defense. And we see him lie in wait. Several on the high ground here, making sure he does not get flanked. And with 4 heroes mid, Venomancer occupies the bottom lane. He's doing quite well. 500, or rather 5,000 net worth at the 26-minute mark. He's going to have that ult stick before too long. And that'll just increase his damage on the Poison Nova. Make him do a little bit more. That could help to secure that kill. Or 2. Or 3, as we sometimes see with Venomancer, in a team fight. We see Venomancer D'ing up this tier 2 bottom. Razor lying in wait, as is Slardar. And he does move out a little too far, but that was a Mystic Flare expended to help kill him. 3 heroes will rotate, but Cloud9 already backing up, waiting for their Witch Doctor to join. This could be significant damage should a team fight arise here. The Plague Ward's continuing to do work. If you are dead, you can continue to micro them. That was 41 gold going his way there.
Dire's bottom tower is under
As we see a
attack.
Shiva's Guard come up on Doom, he's starting to get very tanky. 55 armor, 55%.
Radiant's middle tower
Resistance.
is under attack.
21 armor, going to be
Dire's
very
bottom
key
tower is under
to
attack.
try and negate this ultimate of Slardar. We see the ultimate, a Brewmaster coming out the split. Substantial damage going into Slardar. He's been doomed. But the Death Ward on the high ground. Very cheeky. Probably would have been better off putting that in the pit. I don't think it reached all the way here to the back. And what's this? It's a Plague Ward. Venomancer has come back up, poured it down to the bottom tower, and he's already assisting. What started with him falling alone in the bottom lane turned into a full wipe for Cloud9. And 530 gold coming his way. All for a TP
Radiant's
scroll.
middle tower is under attack.
He did expend his Poison
Radiant
Nova.
structures are
And now,
fortified.
that's an Aghanim's Poison Nova. Increasing the damage and duration, and decreasing the cooldown.
Radiant's middle tower
And
has
now, with
fallen.
heavy pressure coming out from the mid lane, we see
Radiant's
Venomancer in
middle
bottom
tower
lane picking
is
up a
under
TP scroll
attack.
and pushing out the bottom. He puts his first ward down to just make sure he's not flanked. Making sure nobody's coming. And then just getting some more wards in to help push this lane. A second ward coming in. Ensuring these creeps fall quickly so they can now do damage to the tower. With Razor here, we see him instantly backing up. And Razor having to port to defend against a Venomancer, I would say is a win for Misery. That allows both his carries, Wraith King and Doom, to continue farming. Relic Sword, I love that. It's like a pure energy sword. Great cosmetics in this game. Oh, as always, let's check out the Couriers. IG Pro gear. 191 victories. And it looks like they've been watching some Cloud9 games in particular. Not surprising, there's not as many Chinese games compared to your Western teams. And the Summit Courier coming out by Aoi. And Misery just going back to continue to farm these Ancients. A wise investment of his time. And now that his allies are here, he's in hot pursuit to follow. Doom now picking up his ult stick. Alliance have a lot of items coming online here. Slardar not looking so hot with that Vanguard anymore. Looks like he's working on a BKB. But with as much magic
Radiant's
damage as
bottom
Venomancer
tower
is able to put
under
out,
attack.
and Wraith King with the Assault Cuirass, Doom with the Shivas, these next couple fights could be crucial for our Alliance team.
Radiant's bottom tower has fallen.
That tower quickly falling. Already had some damage done to it from that push of Miseries a minute or two prior. And they may be looking to go to this tier
Radiant's
2.
bottom tower is under
450
attack.
HP means even without this creep wave, you have some creeps of your own to help push on these towers and prevent damage coming in to your heroes. The Wraith King with that
Dire's
30%
top
life
tower
steal,
is under attack.
they're going to be pretty good at taking out
Dire's
these outer towers
structures are
regardless.
fortified. Radiant's
We see the
bottom
opposing
tower
tier 2
is under attack.
being taken by Cloud9. But Alliance do not look to be done. They're pushing a little faster, and a quick ward on the high ground. That was always going to die, but it did get a little bit of scouting. It saw how ready was the Cloud9 defense. Well, it's getting closer now that Eternal Envy has his BKB. He too is farming up the Ancients, using that amplified damage on a high HP target, making the most out of that. I always hate to see people amplifying damage on a Satyr that only has 600 HP, but you're going to two-shot anyway. The same can be said for Venomancer. When attempting to farm jungle, I always hate to see these Plague Wards come down for a creep camp that is going to die in a couple seconds. The Ancient farming by Misery, a nice touch. But we see him again on the defensive. He was the one to TP back to the tier 3. And we see a Helm of Iron Will as his next item. Picked up. He already had a swell of gold, 1500. That would presumably be turned into the Veil of Discord. I doubt he's going to get an armlet or Helm of the Dominator. That's just going to help increase the magic damage, as we already mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast. Poison Nova, easily 30 to almost 50% of his damage, depending on the fight. Venomous Gale, along with the dot of Poison Sting, all dealing magical damage. And Alliance pushing out on this mid after farming up their jungle. That smoke being picked up by the courier. And Misery just scouting ahead of him with these Plague Wards a little bit. He knows Razor could be lurking. That's actually a hero who just used his ultimate. So great job on Misery to be cautious there. And we see him just back into lane, pushing out an otherwise empty lane, getting a little extra XP, getting a little extra gold. Looking at the hero levels, he's stayed pretty competitive. He's towards the lower end of the chart, but he's very even with the two supports of Cloud9. Likewise on net worth, very competitive. Not as big of a deal for him to get items, but the Aghanim Scepter, a big pickup for him, will increase his DPS. Likewise, the Veil of Discord when he does complete it. More importantly, though, he does have Observer Wards on him. He's bought smoke several times, and he's kept those TPs to assist his allies. We see him continuing the assistance by roaming through the jungle, putting a ward on the high ground in case there was a random smoke by Cloud9. Almost protecting his allies farming in the creep camps. And now that smoke is used. We see our heroes rotate mid lane. Venomancer just pushing forward, moving into the trees. Would love to run into someone down here. Like a Slardar. 522 movement speed. But Venomous Gale not getting a lot done. However, it is ticking for damage along with a Poison Sting. And with the assistance of Doom, it will secure a kill. And that's a big deal. Skywrath Mage falling as well. Venomancer contributing 600 damage. And now with a tier 2 falling quickly, they can assault the high ground. With these Plague Wards being able to soak up damage from the tower, as well as add in their own little bit of damage. We see Venomancer just staying in the back with the support, using his Plague Wards to zone, prevent a flank, or just continue being a front line of defense, along with this Wraith King and Doom. Two supports in the back, strength heroes up front.
Dire's top tower is under. Radiant's middle barracks has fallen.
And this is quite a wave of slow and dots that C9 are going to have to push through. And that allows Alliance to easily retreat. They took the melee racks in the mid lane and almost got that range barracks down as well. It's the 36-minute mark. Roshan's up in 2 minutes. The first high ground has been breached, so we will use that time to take a break. That's definitely what I would consider the end of the mid game here. in this match between Cloud9 and Alliance. When we come back, we're going to continue and look at the late game for this episode of 4D, Def's Daily Dose of Dota, after this relaxing music break.